Since ancient times, palaces have been used as symbols and statements of power, royalty, and wealth. They've always been aristocratic tools for humble, and most times not so humble, bragging. Because let's face it, the strength of a monarchy is, in greater parts, judged by the size of their palace. The bigger the palace, the greater the power the aristocrats are perceived to hold. While there are regular, unambitious and unspectacular palaces which could pass for glorified family duplexes, there are others whose large dimensions beat the imaginations of the common folk, like you and me, and have us clutching at our chests and exclaiming, "Wait, people actually live here? Yes, they do." Big palaces like these exist even today with the capacity to provide the kind of luxury that most people will never be able to experience even once in their lifetime. Most of them are so big that it's literally impossible for the monarchs to know the other people living in it by face. They might never see the same face twice, even in a whole year. Imagine that, living in a home so big that it's considered impossible, illogical even, to see the same face twice. If this doesn't spell wealth and luxury, I don't know what does. From Asia and across Europe, we bring you 5 of the biggest, most luxurious palaces on Earth. At number 5 is Britain's Buckingham Palace, perhaps the most popular palace in the world. But the opulent Buckingham Palace we know today wasn't always so grand. Like many grand things in life, it had quite a humble beginning. Well, as humble as a palace's beginnings can go. Buckingham Palace actually started off in the 17th century as a large townhouse which had a history of many tenants and owners. In 1698, it was sold to a gentleman who, after finding it quite lacking in taste, demolished it and built another which he renamed Buckingham House once he gained Dukedom of Buckingham. In 1762, George III acquired the Buckingham House and converted it into his family's private home, where his wife, Queen Charlotte, lived. The building was remodeled and no longer known as the Buckingham House, but as the Queen's House. When he succeeded his father in 1820, George IV had bigger dreams for his family home. He wanted it to be transformed into a proper palace. He appointed an architect to redesign it, but sadly, he never got to see his dream palace become completed as he died several years later. After including a 4th wing to the palace's design, Queen Victoria was the first monarch to move into Buckingham Palace and call it home. Ranked as one of the most expensive palaces in the world today, the Buckingham Palace contains over 750 rooms with 250 bedrooms, including staff quarters, 78 bathrooms and 92 offices. Get this, the palace even has its own ATM. The highlights of the Buckingham Palace include the Royal Garden, a grand entrance through which the royal family exit and enter the palace, the famous grand staircase, which is one of the first things visitors notice when they enter the palace, the Yellow Drawing Room, which has entertained great figures like Emperor Napoleon III, and a private audience room which houses the royal family photos. At number 4, we have the Winter Palace in Petersburg, Russia. This state-of-the-art palace located in the heart of Petersburg is Russia's symbol of power and wealth. It boasts over 1,000 rooms, 117 staircases, and a large inner courtyard fondly known as the Palace Square. The Winter Palace was originally built in Baroque style with dramatic colours and twisting elements. But after the fire accident in 1837, a large part of the interior was redesigned in Rococo style. It began as a modest building owned by Peter the Great of Russia. The Winter Palace has been through a lot of renovations for a palace. From periods of war to the fall of the Russian monarchy and a nasty fire accident, the Winter Palace has seen it all. But perhaps this is what makes it more valuable today. Its impeccable architectural structure and cultural significance has made it a hotspot for tourists from all over the world. Up next, and coming in at number 3, is the Palace of Versailles, located in France. The Versailles will always be known for its architectural grandeur and revolutionary history. Just by looking at the palace, it becomes obvious that the Versailles was built to impress. It was once a hunting lodge, but was later transformed into a palace during the reign of Louis XIV, who was known as the Sun King. The palace has over 2,000 rooms and covers a large square area of land. By the order of Louis XIV, the palace fountains were constructed in such a way that their display held the ancient people of Versailles in awe. Even today, the Palace of Versailles remains one of the most visited places in France. Its grand architecture and breathtaking water fountain displays draw visitors from far and near. Not only do visitors come to see the impressive water displays, they also come to see the Hall of Mirrors. Some people would argue that the Hall of Mirrors is the best room in the palace. It has 17 massive mirrored arches opposite 17 windows. Each one of those arches further contains 21 mirrors, making a total of 357 mirrors. Whenever royal visitors came over, the hall was lit up with many candles, causing the room to become a corridor of light. This was said to be one of the king's sources of pride. He used this to impress important guests. The king's apartment is quite literally fit for a king. The rooms were filled with decorations dedicated to the 7 planets, as they were known to be then, and the Roman gods that were believed to rule them. The apartment boasted of 5 grand rooms, including the council chamber and the king's private quarters. The Istana Nurul Iman makes number 2 in our list, and for good reason too. This architectural wonder located in Brunei is so large that it was included in the Guinness Book of Records' largest residence of a royal head. You think Buckingham Palace and the Palace of Versailles are large? The Istana Nurul Iman is several times larger than both. Can you even imagine the size of this palace? It cost over $1 billion to construct. And yes, this is someone's home. But not just anyone though. This is the home of the country's Sultan Hassan al-Bolkiah. It has 5 swimming pools and over 250 bathrooms. The palace boasts of a built-in mosque which had a capacity of 1,500 people and a banquet hall which can hold 5,000 guests. Check this. The palace also has a helipad. Marble and gold are the main decorations in this palace. This palace is purely exclusive and is only open to the public 3 times a year. The only way you can admire this palace at other times in the year is by taking a boat trip on the Brunei River. And topping our list at number 1 is the Forbidden City complex in Beijing, China. This magnificent palace is located in the heart of Beijing and sits on over 170 acres of land, which kind of makes the city part make more sense when you think about it. It is the largest palace complex in the world. To give you an idea of how big the Forbidden City complex is, its palace complex is large enough to contain over 50 Buckingham Palaces. The Forbidden City was built in the 14th century and took 14 years to build, and took over 1 million workers to build it. Being the residence of monarchs in China for such a long time, the palace has seen 24 emperor reigns. In ancient times, the ordinary folk were not allowed anywhere near the palace because it was believed that it was a divine dwelling for one of the monarchs, who was said to be blessed with supernatural powers. Even today, the palace remains uninhabited and abandoned and serves only as a tourist location. The Forbidden City Palace is said to have been redesigned to have 9,999.5 rooms. Why the half, you ask? Well, half a room was cut off to avoid angering the god of heaven, who was believed to have 10,000 rooms in his palace. The palace complex also boasts of exotic European and Arabic-style buildings. There are also rumored to be fake artworks in the Forbidden Palace, which are deliberately displayed and are no less valuable than their respective originals. For such a palace as large and mysterious as this, it's no wonder that the Palace Museum in the Forbidden City attracts 14 million visitors every year. That's all for today on the biggest, most luxurious palaces planet Earth has to offer. Are there other magnificent palaces which you believe should have made our list? Let us know in the comments. To get more content like this, don't forget to hit the like button on this video and subscribe to our channel.